Hello and welcome to my channel. So about a year ago, when I first made my pretty privilege video, one of the things that I ran into all the time, whether it was here, whether it was somebody in my DMs, whether it was someone in my life who wanted to have a conversation about it, was the concept of pretty privilege not being a privilege. And people would say that for various reasons, whether it was because it brought them jealousy and ire and discontent from their relatives, like maybe they were a daughter. I had one lady write me this very passionate email about how difficult her life had been because she was a beautiful young woman and her mother was jealous of her. And so she basically grew up being like abused and, really mistreated because of this jealousy. And so she wanted me to know that like being pretty is like the worst thing that ever happened to me. And it was her. And I said, I totally support that. I understand. I'm not going to invalidate your story. I do understand that aspect of it. Another example, I had a young woman, she was talking to me about how she went to go work a job and she was being nice and kind to everyone, but the other woman that worked there was being very rude to her. And she was like, so see, you might not understand that. I'm used to people not taking me seriously or being very just weird with me, especially if they are other women, because I know that I'm considered pretty. And finally, I had somebody message me and they were like, when I think of the downsides of pretty privilege, I think about the fact that you have women like Dorothy Dandridge and Marilyn Monroe who were exploited and abused in the Hollywood system because they were thought of just being women who had to coast on their beauty. They were treated badly by men, and eventually they both succumbed to drug addictions and early death. And I responded to that message and I said, well, but you also have people like Lena Horne and you have people like Audrey Hepburn. You also have a long list of people who were very beautiful, but also did not have the proclivities for addiction or, they weren't mentally ill. Because I think when you talk about Marilyn Monroe, you have to also speak about the mental illness that she had, that her mother had. I mean, it was pronounced in her family and then also her very, very rough upbringing. In that situation, especially, it wasn't just about her exploitation at the hands of men in the Hollywood system because she was considered pretty. It also had a lot to do with all of the different societal factors and her familial factors that affected her and affected the very structuring of her person. So it wasn't just the pretty in her case, as it wasn't just the pretty in Dorothy Dandridge's case. But the point is that I have had to hear about it a lot since I made that video. Just people basically saying, having pretty privilege is not all it's cracked up to be, and you need to make sure you understand that. So last week when I was on TikTok, I got that reminder again when this young woman uploaded a video where she talked about the negative side of being considered conventionally attractive, especially, when you're considered beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead and play her video for you now.
I think that something people fail to realize is that when you are a conventionally attractive person, it doesn't make it easier to find someone you're compatible with. I would go a step further and say that it makes it a little harder, and here's why. Men will date you, and I think even go so far as to marry you because they find you attractive and they know a lot of other people find you attractive and they like to be seen with you. I truly believe that my ex-husband never liked me. I don't think he liked my personality. I don't think he liked my sense of humor. I don't think he liked being around me. I think that he liked the way that I looked when I was by his side and the way other people saw him when he was with me. Also, I think he wanted to have attractive children, and I come from a fertile family. That sounds weird, but like everyone in my family has a bunch of kids, and he wanted a bunch of kids. So I genuinely think he married me because he liked the way I look and he wanted to use my uterus to house his children. And now that I've been dating for a while, I've had quite a few men tell me things like, oh, I didn't talk to you at first because I thought there was no way you were single. I thought there was no chance you didn't have a boyfriend or a husband. I've also been told things like, I love walking into a room with you and having people's heads turn to look at you. I love how when we go places, people notice you with me. And I'm not mad that they're saying these things. I know that they're trying to compliment me and tell me I'm beautiful. But what I hear is, I like being seen with you. And what it makes me wonder is, okay, but do you like me? Do you like being with me? Do you want to just sit around and do nothing with me? Like, is my personality attractive to you? Like, you don't know. Also, you will have a lot of men who show interest in you, who say they want to date you, and you're weeding through like a lot of options who are not good options for you, you're not a good option for them, but they get almost, I call it blinded by the booty. And it's not just about the booty, but it's just blinded by this physical thing that they want. Because, right, men are so visual. Because so many men date based on this like physical appearance that they want in their girlfriend, they end up compromising values they have, the things that they want. And it makes it feel like, to me, it's all on me to decide if me and this guy are compatible. Because he might be able to overlook all these reasons why we shouldn't be together, and I'm the only one trying to determine whether or not this relationship has what it takes to go the distance.
So one of the things that stuck out to me about this video was I'm so happy that it was her that made it, because I think that if a Black woman had made it, if a Latina woman had made it, if an Asian woman had made it, I think that it would have stayed on certain parts of TikTok. It would have stayed sort of sequestered. Also, I think if a Black woman had made it, she probably would have been subject to a lot of mockery and slander, because I tend to notice that it is a social media trend for when a Black woman talks about her looks in a positive way, or even just like confirms that she understands that she's attractive, she tends to be attacked, and it's a horrible reality of social media, but it happens. Another reason why I'm happy that this young woman made the video is because we may not want to admit it, but she's very much the standard of beauty, right? Blonde hair, blue eyes, you look at her features, very high cheekbones, pointed nose. She's here in the South, and she is a curvier woman. And I think, we can say what we want about the Kardashians and their physical appropriation of different cultures, very real body types, and how they took that appropriation and they caused those body types to be popularized in demographics that they weren't normally popular in. Translation, they made it popular for white women to also have curves and big butts without being made fun of and mocked. I think that is such an interesting societal shift that we don't talk about enough. Well, people talked about it a lot in July. There are actually a lot of videos where people talked about that, because there had been pictures and videos going around of Khloe's butt getting smaller and Kim getting really, really scarily skinny. But we don't talk about how before the Kardashians kind of, hooked up with their Black partners, the norm for white women in the public arena was small hips, tiny thighs. If anything was big on you, it was going to be your bust. And because white produced media was the most popular mass media, the norm for anybody in media, any woman, needed to be that. There's a lot of places where it's still, sort of illegal for a woman to be a certain size. But I do think that the Kardashians, with the appropriating that they did, they just popularized a certain body type in areas where it wasn't normally popular. I'm saying all that to say this woman is curvy. She's in the South. She's in a new age where white women are allowed to look like that, and people are excited about it, especially a certain group of people. So I look at her and I'm like, yeah, in a lot of ways it is very true. She is what most men are looking for. It's her. And I love the fact that she owned up to it, and she doesn't make it about the confidence that she has. She doesn't turn it into this whole thing about how she just, followed these 3 little steps to manifest her beauty and her allure. She doesn't bullshit us. She very clearly out front says, I know what I look like, and because of that, I have to deal with this. Let's talk about the this that she has to deal with, though. When it comes to love and like being with the partner that you want, is pretty privilege really a privilege? Because when I think about myself, the reason why I even made that video is because I had tried to date. I tried to be a young lady, a young hot lady in the city. And I'd noticed a couple things that I've talked about thousands of times on this channel before. Well, not thousands, but hundreds of times. I've talked about it a lot, okay? I noticed that when I would go on dating apps, there were certain men that I wasn't even allowed to view because the algorithms, I was at the bottom. I ranked at the bottom of those algorithms. So I wasn't even seeing certain men. So when people would be like, how you end up with him, sis? That's who I see. Based on who likes me in the area, these are the type of men that I'm allowed to select from, because that's how dating apps work. I noticed that, going out in public, I was only catching the eye of certain types of people, and it was usually people that had no standards for their life. So they definitely didn't have any standards for their partner. And that was very typical for the kind of men that would be attracted to me. It was usually men who did not value or had not lived a life of great prestige. So I think that's why they felt like, okay, well, she's somebody that I can get. And I'm gonna go back to that young lady's video in a second, and because she definitely hit on that. And also, I had come out of the years where I had really, really kind of put my life aside and my goals aside because I wanted to achieve this dream of being a mom and a wife and this and that. And I just felt like I didn't have things on my side. I wasn't enough to catch the eye. I wasn't enough to compete in an area and in a place where a lot of women are very beautiful. And I know the system, just like that young girl in the video knows the system. And a lot of times when men are picking, they're not necessarily picking somebody that they're gonna love, they're picking the person who's going to look the best on their arm. And so when I made my video, I was coming from the complete opposite of where she was coming from. I was basically saying my lack of pretty privilege prevented me from being able to really enjoy the dating process, really pick better men. And as a result, I'm a little pissed about it. Now, of course, I talked about other things in that video, but that's kind of where it came from. Just a frustration at, wow, like I'm 37 years old and I feel like I've never gotten a chance to really be who I want in the dating world because people don't think I'm pretty enough. So watching this young woman talk about it from her side was eye-opening for me. And, people have made their responses, and I've seen a lot of different viewpoints represented. For example, I like what this young man had to say.
Conventionally attractive person, it doesn't make it easier to find.
Okay. Imagine your issue being that so many people find you desirable that you have to sort through all your options. Anyway, what I do believe is that because the world finds fat people, dark-skinned people, black people undesirable, I believe that there are people who would like to be with folks who fall into those categories, but because they know society views those people as less than, as the undesirables, folks would like to be seen in public with folks who are deemed desirable, like the person in the original post said about themselves as being conventionally attractive. I think a lot of the situations are sometimes is that people actually use desirable folks as their trophy, as a person to have on their arm when they walk in the room, turn heads, as the original post said. In reality, they would like to be with somebody that's fat. They can because they're caught up in the optics of desirability. I can't say I feel bad for desirable folks. Plain desirability politics.
And I think a lot of people who have lived the opposite of what she's explaining in that video would agree with him. I know I agreed with him. I was like, hey, I see what you're saying, but what you're talking about right now is sort of like an embarrassment of opportunity. And there's a lot of us who never have that. But just to go back to her video, I do want to say that sometimes quantity does not equal quality. And in that case, my heart did go out to her, and also anybody else who had her experience and who has been made to feel the way she's been made to feel. I think that was the saddest thing for me looking at that video was this was a young woman who had never felt loved. And I could definitely empathize with that. Pretty privilege, not having pretty privilege. I think the one thing that we could kind of come to the table together on is if you've never been loved, it really hurts. And on that note, I'd like to say this. Since I made that video a year ago, one thing that has been made abundantly clear to me through various means is that at the end of the day, whether or not you experience love in this life really just has to do with the overall, and I say this all the time, but it's just your overall journey in life. The people that have been assigned to you, the people that you're gonna meet, the people that whatever, that at the end of the day doesn't really have a whole lot to do with how you look. I think what she's describing and what originally brought me to YouTube to complain about are superficial situations, meaning they're situations and opportunities based on just the outside of a person. But if we talk about the things that have happened to us or the things that will happen to us based on how our overall lives are supposed to turn out, and I am speaking kind of in a spiritual sense here, the way you look when it comes to those situations really doesn't matter at all. I say this because, and I'm going to upload a vlog about my travels, my solo travels. But one of the things I noticed on my trip was that I was at a hotel mistakenly for couples and children with couples. And I'm going to talk about that experience in my vlog. But one of the things I noticed was that there were so many women there who who I would not describe as, you know, if I looked at them, I wouldn't say, oh, she stops traffic. You know, I wouldn't say, oh, this person is a fitness model. I wouldn't. These were women who were all different shades, all different races. Two different Black women got married at the hotel while I was there. They were both dark-skinned Black women. Yep, both dark-skinned Black women. So, you know, take that, podcasters. One was a curvier woman, and she wore her cute little bride bathing suits and everything in the water while I was there. And when I say that these women were being loved on, they were being kissed, they were being held, they were being whispered to. And I kind of watched this the whole weekend, and I wanted to grab them at certain points and be like, don't you know about the war at home? You know, like, how did you do this, girl? And that's because at the end of the day, if love is supposed to be in your life, genuine love, then the way that you look ultimately is not going to stop you from receiving that. And so one thing that I've had to come to grips with, you know, here at 38 years old now, is that I didn't meet the person that I was looking for because it wasn't my time to meet them. And if I had come to grips with that a year ago, then I would never made that pretty privilege video. But still, it does hurt feeling invisible. It does hurt feeling like you have no options. And I now know that it also hurts being hyper visible and feeling like everybody wants you to be their option, even when they don't really know who you are. They don't really understand anything about you. They're investing in you for completely superficial reasons. And this is also, her video is also the reason why I never feel bad when I see men online complaining. There was a guy who made a video where he was like, where are all the women who pack lunches and rub backs for hard working men? And, you know, he was going viral around TikTok for saying those things. And this guy responded to him and was like, they're still out there. They do it all the time. And either we did something to mess it up or we don't like them back. And I was like, there you go. I am convinced that every time a man gets on a microphone, jumps on, makes a video and complains about there's no good women who, there's no this, there's no that, 100% he was superficially evaluating women. So he was going after them just for their looks. He's trying to get into, that's the one that I know is going to raise my social status. So I'm going to offer her money and this and this. And when she returns his advances with superficial behavior of her own, his feelings get hurt and he lashes out. I've said that before. I'll say that until I can't even talk anymore. Because I know a lot of really great women. I know me. I know what I was willing to do for somebody who didn't like me back. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, her video was definitely eye-opening for somebody who has not had that issue in life at all. I would definitely say that, that's one of the things that even though I know ultimately, if I was meant to meet someone great, I would have met them. But I do hate that I didn't get the chance to, because one of the things that's pretty cool that I do see happening to women who are thought of as being more pretty or more exciting, and men want to invite them places and do things with them, is that they get to have experiences. I was thinking about this today. I was like, man, I wish I could have some just more experiences, being invited as a guest to the wedding, being invited on trips out of town, of course, with somebody that you actually like, because I can't do it otherwise. But being the type of person that, somebody's like, oh, hey, I want my friends to see her. So she's invited out. We're going to be in VIP. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Being the type of person that people want on their shoulder when they walk into their company gala. Being the type of person that, I think obviously it's like you want somebody to want you past just how good you look on their arm. But when they think you look good on their arm, you do get access to social spaces that those of us who don't qualify don't get access to. Like, I got to get into that gala on my own. I got to do this by myself, which I'm perfectly up to it. Like, let's do the work. But I do think sometimes that having pretty privilege is a shortcut. And it's a shortcut into certain societal conventions that people that don't have it don't get to experience. And so in conclusion, what I will say is that I'm happy she made that video. There's been a lot of really interesting responses to it. And so I will link it below. But also her username is here so you can look her up. And if you click on the sound, if you don't know how TikTok works, or if you're on TikTok and you just haven't seen it, if you click on the sound of her video, you can see all the stitches and all the responses. And I'll say now what I said back then when my pretty privilege video first came out and people were responding and they were saying, well, hey, I've been thought of as the pretty one and it sucked and da-da-da. I'm not invalidating her story. I'm not invalidating your story if that's your story. It's not my experience. And I think the important thing about social media is that no matter what your experience has been on a subject, you be allowed to speak up, hopefully not problematically so. That's another thing I love about her video. She was just so well spoken and so to the point with it. I love that. But you get the opportunity to speak up and tell your truth and tell your story. And I think what's important is just that your story is not invalidated. When people would come to me and they would tell me that they'd had the other experience with pretty privilege and that they'd been bullied or that they'd been, ostracized, or that my heart went out to them. Hey, I understand that was painful too. And sometimes it's really hard to hold two sides of a story, right? Literally, I had a kid once when I was in 3rd grade walk up to me, look me in the face and go, "You ugly?" I had a little bit of a lazy eye in 3rd grade too. It was not good. But yeah, I have those stories and those wounds cut deep. However, when somebody comes to me and they tell me their story and they have the opposite, well, gosh, nobody wanted to talk to me or be my friend because all the boys thought I was pretty, my heart goes out to them as well. And I think that that's a tough thing to do. And that takes a lot of years of growth. You have to own your own pain around a situation and then kind of process it so you can see, okay, well, this is also valid. This is also a painful situation. But also you have to stick to your guns about what you experienced. And so just to take it back to a question I posed earlier in the video, when it comes to love, is pretty privilege still a privilege? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it gives you the opportunity to do what they tell us as women to do and pick better men. It gives you the opportunity to really say, okay, I've got A, B, C, D trying to come after me. Here's how I'm going to figure out who the right one is. When I see people online talking about ladies, don't settle, don't settle, don't settle. It's hard not to settle when nobody's interested. But when people are interested, you can really, really apply pressure. And so for this young woman, I hope that's what she evolves into. I hope she's like, you know what? I have something that these men want. Great. May the best man win. And that is an attitude that you can only have when you got a million of them knocking at your door. And so for me, when it comes to love and trying to find a partner, pretty privilege will always be a privilege, especially if you're a woman, because it gives you the power to choose wisely.
Okay, you guys knew I was coming through with the interlude at some point in this video. And if you didn't know, here it is. So I want to reiterate again, I really do know and understand that love is like it should be an unsuperficial kind of universal level experience that anybody can experience regardless of their features. What I'm talking about here when I say, the search for love and the search for a partner, we don't know when that person is coming in. We don't know how we're going to meet that person. We don't know, so on and so forth. But what I think is interesting is that when you are considered to be more conventionally attractive, especially if you're a woman and you're a woman who dates men, I'm going to speak from my situation here, but I've had people reach out to me of all gender identifications and of all sexual identifications. And honestly, being conventionally attractive works the same way in all marketplaces. The hotter you are perceived to be, the more attractive, the more opportunities you have, maybe not necessarily to find love, because, love finds us regardless when it's our time, if it is to be our time in this life. But you get to participate in the things that make that journey a little bit more enjoyable and fun. Dating. As a woman, I have not really dated a lot and I can tell you it's because in a lot of situations, I'm not seen as being somebody that people are really excited about dating. And, I've spoken about that. But I also know that as a woman, the quality of dates that I'm offered from men is generally they're not very high quality dates. And, I'm thinking about a story that I experienced last summer, where I went to a hotel, a gambling hotel in Lake Charles. And there was a guy there who just basically was like, I'm a rich guy. I am on a dating app and I want somebody to spend my time with. I'm going to pick a pretty girl. And she literally made out with other people, had her legs in the air, was doing a whole bunch of stuff all around this dude all day. But he was like,
oh well, you know, I brought her here. I told her she could come for free. I get free rooms. I can do this. I can do that. It's fine. She's my guest. She doesn't owe me anything. He just wanted a beautiful woman to keep him company. And so this girl, you know, just from Hinge got a trip, and people get that kind of stuff all the time. They get, you know, trips and dinners and experiences and concert tickets and all these things that I have to work really hard for. I have to work really, really hard because, you know, my partner is not here. They're taking their very sweet time. So I have to work very hard to get some of these experiences. And so, yeah, I think just speaking from like a heterosexual woman's point of view, to feel more celebrated as a woman and to feel more highly desired would definitely just make the journey to finding whoever your partner is supposed to be just a lot more enjoyable. And so that's what I really mean here. When I talk about like the search for love, I really mean just like, you know, the dating process and, you know, those experiences that you can have when you are dating and you are considered to be someone that people are excited about. There are all kinds of different things that you can do and people that you can meet. And I think in those situations, you have the highest power because you're able to really, really decide and discern who gets access to you versus someone like me who, since nobody's really vying for access to me, I sort of have to really work from almost it feels like 0 dark 30. Like, it's like, okay, who am I picking from? And then people come at you with all of these comments. They're like, well, you picked somebody terrible. But a lot of times, you know, you're just a human being and you want to have some kind of experience and you end up having something and it's just horrible because I'm to the point, to be honest with you, and you may or may not be able to relate, where if a man is interested in me, I immediately am like, well, what's wrong with him? And I find out he's got something happened to where he picked me or wanted to focus on me because he really didn't have a lot else going on. And I hate that feeling. I hate that. I hate that. So, and again, I know that, you know, that's probably just because whomever I want either is not coming or is taking their sweet time, but it definitely has been the reality of my dating life so far. So when I say it makes it a little easier or more fun and you get to be more discerning and you get to really be able to choose well and kind of, you know, have a really an interesting experience that I've never been able to have. That's what I'm talking about. I understand that love is different than just dating. And so I wanted to make that distinction clear. I want to know what you think. I want to know if you've seen the video. I know a lot of you started watching my channel because of Pretty Privilege. So I thought that this was an interesting take on it. And I want to know how you feel in the comments. As always, thanks for watching.